Innovation is in our veins. Soon the whole world will know our names. Sharing our knowledge and freedom reign. We here for the people, you know it's our way. Setting foundations is part of the dream. It doesn't matter if you're new to the game. Listen up now, cause we all gon' say, elevate, 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 higher, elevate, 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 higher. We gon' rise up, we all gon' shine. Work through adversity, stay on the grind. Elevate, elevate, this is our time. Elevate, elevate.
Welcome to the Elevate Podcast, everyone. It's so great to have you all on one more time. It's your boy Josh.
And Reg.
And we're grateful to be back on with you yet again. We're stoked to be here. There's a lot to get into. Well, we're going to be kind of going into a little trail off what happened last week. Is more stuff coming about foreign interference, and we're chatting about it tonight. We're excited to get into it, as well as more MPs are doing more shady stuff. And hey, well, surprise, surprise. That's what we're here for. Also, we have a guest coming on here, Logan Stitt, who is an awesome contributor on the conservative side of the aisle. Really has a huge hand in the Conservative Party and the Conservative movement, and he'll be joining us later on to talk for the foreign interference and kind of what's been happening and how should MPs and should the political system address it moving forward. This and so much more. Reg, how you feeling, big dog?
Tired. Yeah. Anybody who's a parent or soon-to-be parent or understands in general, you're constantly tired after you have a kid. But also, this one I kind of did to myself. So I had to single parent all weekend because my wife was working all weekend. She's a shift worker at the hospital. So taking care of people, taking care of healthcare, taking care of business. And so I was taking care of the little one.
Nice.
So Father's Day was very intimate. It was just me and the little one, and we spent it outside because it was sunny and beautiful, and got to have some good father-daughter bonding time.
Yeah, I hope that little one made you some breakfast. What the heck's going on here, dude?
At 1.5, not likely.
Dude, 100% has to. What are we doing here? China does it. Oh, baby, here we go. Sorry.
We are spicy tonight. So one of the things I said to Josh, so the reason why I'm so tired, I kind of didn't really get a break over the weekend is what I was alluding to. But then the other part of it is that I made a mess and I had to lay in it a little bit. So I'm finishing up some external education through Simon Fraser University. And it was the last course out of a certificate program that I'm doing as an extra bit of knowledge. And I left the last 6 weeks of this 10-week course to the last 24 hours.
Nice.
So I managed to pull off actually some really, really good work. It was funny because I was finishing things and I was just like, damn, that was good. And then I did another one. I was like, that was really good too. And I was really feeling myself. I was like, oh, I'm good at what I do. I think after, I don't even know how many years of education I've done, masters, undergrads. And
I mean, you used to be a liberal, right? So that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a perpetual student. Sorry.
Basically. Woo. Anyway, I'm good at it now is what I can determine. But it has left me completely burnt out, and I saved the last little bit of mental resources to do a lot of research for tonight's show and for you folks. And I'm excited. So I got a little spicy because when I get tired, everything becomes hilarious and everything gets spicy. So that's what you're in for.
And we made sure to touch on topics that are really wild too on top of that, which we didn't mention in the intro, but trust me, it gets interesting. And yeah, like you and I are kind of in a similar space right now. I left to go to Toronto at 3 in the morning on Friday. Stayed up all the way till 1 a.m. Almost did a 24-hour day that day. Wild. Spent the weekend trying to recover, but was packed doing things for 14, 16-hour days, Saturday and Sunday. Because, you know, had to let my sister feel loved after her graduation. And she wanted to do everything that Toronto had to offer. And we went everywhere. And then Father's Day, somewhat of a similar thing. And then I got up early, 5 a.m., Monday morning, travel back to Halifax, get here for noon, and then start getting prepped and ready for tonight's show and get ready for the show tonight. And that's where the headspace I'm in is I'm on limited sleep as well. And so you and I have a similar problem. Is when we get tired, we say some wild things. So if any episode gets us canceled, this will be the one.
This is the episode that gets us both fired and canceled. Oh, man. So should we start it off then?
You start us off, Reg.
Let's start within the news. So basically what's in the news right now, locally in Nova Scotia, we're getting the largest windmill operation, wind farm, in Canada.
Wow.
So that's what's proposed. And of course, people oppose it.
Of course.
We kind of alluded to this a while back.
Who is opposing is the question.
So it's being opposed by certain members of the community who are saying, you know, not in my backyard. They're saying it's going to destroy the ecosystem. It's going to destroy a habitat, blah, 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 unintended consequences, which like some of it could be true, but also we're going to need that energy and we're going to need that output. So we kind of have to, you know, deal with the consequences here and decide, are we just going to burn more coal and that's going to be okay? Or are we actually going to take advantage of the natural resources that we have here, which is wind? And so I'm hoping that's going to be the latter, but you never know.
True.
People be crazy. So, but I do get it. You know, having a big wind farm in your backyard would kind of suck. At the same time, it's got to go somewhere. And unfortunately, they've found the best spot for it because they've done all the studies and they've shown that this is where the wind blows the hardest and the fastest and the most consistently. So that's where it's going to go.
Where is this? Where is it?
In Guysborough County.
Okay.
So
no one lives there. It's all good.
Shout out to those folks.
Sorry, just kidding. We love you guys out there.
I'm putting the camera on you. Anyway, so what's interesting though that I wanted to bring back up about this was the fact that before I had kind of looked at this and I was like, no, I was so disappointed. Now I get to be excited that I was wrong in my calculation, because basically what I was looking at before was they were looking at wind to hydrogen. And this time they're actually saying wind to hydrogen and ammonia. So a byproduct of creating the hydrogen, and they can sell both. And so it actually makes it a profitable enterprise. Whereas before I was like, this is going to be neutral and then it's going to be done.
Right.
Now there's actually some profit on the table. They've redone the analysis and like, okay, the numbers actually work. So hydrogen's back on the menu. So I was pretty happy.
Freaking hydrogen.
Okay. But back to the news. So Trump says that he's going to increase tariffs and remove income tax.
That is so racist.
and people, honestly, they don't know what to think of it because people are loving it, hating it. They just don't even know what to think about it. News Daddy online was like, no, this is not a great idea. And his comments, people were just like, what are you talking about? Go back to the UK. They were not happy. But it was funny. Calgary calls a state of emergency over their water main. The 3 to 5 day operation is now going to be 3 to 5 weeks.
Gee.
So that's rough. They are calling the state of emergency so that they can actually access different legal mechanisms, things like being able to park their equipment on private land so that they can do the work a little more freely, being able to stop traffic, move things around, because you can have those powers under a state of emergency that you couldn't otherwise. And Danielle Smith's like, finally, good job, guys.
Wow, gee.
In her typical way of being like, I'm very supportive, so good for her. But
Poor Calgary, Michigan. I mean, Calgary, Alberta. Sometimes out there, man.
Yeah, right?
Gee.
But anyway, Calgarians, we feel for you. Get that water. You know, we're hoping this gets fixed quickly for you because it's going to get hot pretty soon, and you're going to need that water. So
Yeah.
Also, the U.S. sends legislation to their Senate on a draft. And then the Senate is coming back and saying, we should probably include females in this too because we want gender equality.
Equality. Yeah. Come on.
So
Gee.
that's a big piece of legislation that's come through, which is not indicative of good things. But, you know, hey, it's there. The UK is also following suit. They're Sunak. Is that how you say his name? Yep. He's soon to be, well, if he gets elected, minister for the Conservative Party there, which if you don't realize, it's kind of backwards in the UK. The Conservatives are actually like the Liberals here, and the Reform Party in the UK is like our Conservatives. So basically the UK's Liberals are saying that if they're elected on July 4th, that they are going to enact a year of service for anybody who is 18. Ooh. And that will be the case going forward. So good slap in the face to the young people of the UK.
Yeah, good for them. Good job voting.
But also in world news, we got a little update on Gaza. So Hamas, they have said that...
Hold your butts, yo.
So we know that the numbers that Hamas have been putting out there are about 24,000 women and children that have lost their lives due to the ongoing war and conflict in that region. The UN has quietly issued a correction to that number. They've basically cut the number in half. They've revised it to 12,756 women and children, which not a great number. Still not a great number, okay? Like, to be fair. But also, it's not 24,000. And the UN, again, very quietly putting that number out there.
Secrets.
And then when Hamas is being asked about these things, don't worry, those 12,000 women and children are necessary sacrifices, according to Hamas.
Yeah, man.
Because, anyway.
Are we surprised?
I know, right?
Holy jumping. Whoa, a terrorist organization saying, oh, women and children dying was a worthy sacrifice? Oh, baby, let's go. Free power. Sorry.
But you know what? Hamas has said they have Israelis right where they want them. So they're not in any shape, way, or state to sign any kind of ceasefire agreement because of the necessary sacrifices and because they know that the world is against Israel right now. And that's exactly what they want to see.
That's all it was. That was the whole plan from the get-go.
Yeah. It's just, that's unfortunate. But we're going to bring it back to Canada.
Canada.
And so Toronto and Vancouver, shout out to you guys because you've earned the title of impossibly unaffordable.
Gee.
So that was in a recent study by Demographia International Housing Affordability, which is a report that's released every year. So you have earned that coveted title of impossibly unaffordable. Good job, guys. Congrats to you. And this is also when Stats Can shows that our unemployment rate is now at 6.1%, rising by 250,000 people, or 20% in the last year alone. Good job, Liberal Party, for saving Canadian jobs.
Hey.
And Toronto, you win another award because you have the most unemployed people at 317,000 unemployed folks, which is a wild number. That is like the entire peninsula of Halifax unemployed. But don't worry, because that doesn't include a good portion of the population, which are called discouraged workers. So discouraged workers are folks who have deemed that the employment market is just untenable and that they are not going to be able to find work. So because of that, they're not included in the unemployment rate because they're considered discouraged.
Wow.
So Stats Canada back in the day actually used to count this and have this as a separate metric because it's kind of important. But just to show that we're nonpartisan in our criticism, this was a nice little gift from Stephen Harper when he was just like, let's just scoop that under the, what is it called again?
Discouraged.
Outside the labor force.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice.
So not in the labor force is a metric that captures folks who have retired, people who are in school, and then anybody else who is either injured or who has become discouraged. So if you are outside the labor market for long enough, you're considered discouraged, and then you are excluded from those figures. So if you're thinking that the unemployment rate seems a little bit low for what might actually be the case, it's because it is. And our governments have kept it that way because we just like to hide things in this country.
Yeah, I know.
Because it makes it so much more nice when you get to say, oh, look, it's not as bad. See?
Straight up.
What are these numbers? Don't matter here. It's Canada. Come on, guys.
Justin Trudeau and our government for the past, I guess, 14 years, 15 years, giving Canadians you can't see me straight up. Holy jumping! It's been a wild time. And speaking of wild times, and speaking of lack of transparency, first off, shout out Trump. I still can't get over that. I'm not American, but he's got my vote on that 100%.
Oh yeah, me too.
That's an amazing. Yeah, just do the math. Do the math. People have really fallen in love with the idea of taxes and being taken from, which is interesting. Anyways, won't get into that. Speaking of being taken from, though, the NDP MP saying someone who doesn't really have a huge foothold in Ottawa as an MP decided to bill taxpayers $17,000 for a trip to meet stakeholders over the Christmas break.
I mean, as you do. I mean, this is Canada again, right?
Yeah.
Just talk to the PM. He does the same thing.
Yeah, straight up. Just saying, they're doing what we got to do. NDP MP, who's rarely on Parliament Hill, billed taxpayers for travel with family over Christmas. Parliamentary travel records indicate NDP MP Nikki Ashton was only in Ottawa on one occasion for 4 days during the fall of the 2022 sitting. Gee. But on December 21st of that year, Ashton flew from Thompson, Manitoba to Ottawa 5 days after the House of Commons had already risen for its Christmas break. Ashton's partner, Bruce Moncur, a former NDP nomination candidate, and their 2 children also made the trip with the MP to the nation's capital. Then, on Christmas Day, 2022, the family of 4 traveled to Quebec City. Ashton billed the Commons for some of the expenses they incurred along the way. Social media posts show Moncur and the children took in some of Quebec City's winter attractions, including an ice slide and snow tubing at Village Vacances Valcartier outside the city center.
I think that's lovely. That's so nice. You know what? This is going to make people hate me, but I actually would rather see them spending money on a kid having a great time than passing it over to GC Strategies. Or to Ukraine or to anywhere else outside of the country. At least this money stayed in our economy.
Feed the children, baby. Feed the children.
Give them the ice slides.
People need to know that was probably the most wise crack I could have made. Do you know the history of Feed the Children?
No, I do not.
It was the original name for We Charity.
Oh, no. I didn't know that.
Oh, baby.
Man.
So let's break down the numbers because it's fun. The trip cost taxpayers $17,641.12. 12 cents is really important here, including $13,500 for airfare and other transportation, $2,500 for accommodations, and $1,500 for meals and other incidentals, according to Commons records. Gee, Ashton justified billing taxpayers for the trip by claiming she was going to the provincial capital to attend meetings with stakeholders about business of the House over the holidays, according to House of Commons travel records. So,
do you know where she screwed up? The House had already risen.
Yeah.
This is where you screwed up, lady. Come on. Everybody knows if you're going to scam Canadians, you do it while the House is actually sitting. Obviously. Jeez.
Yeah.
Learn to scam us better.
Yeah. Be better.
Look at NDP. They're always screwing this up, man.
They can't do anything right over there. Holy smokes.
They can't even scam us properly.
This is why they've never been in power.
Nope.
Holy smokes. Yeah. So I thought that was just kind of an interesting story just because obviously we see so much corruption with the Liberal Party at this point. But then, and Jagmeet has done his job or done what he does to brand the NDP as being for the working person, being above all this nonsense. To see one of his MPs who's done nothing in his party bill us that much, that's a wild story, dude.
I love it because it's right on brand with his Rolex and his,
not the Rolex,
changing his name and, we're not like the other people.
Yeah.
We're one of you. It's nah, you guys are just the same as the rest.
Yeah, seriously. Well, so this is what I thought was interesting too. We're gonna actually jump into segment 5 here, just because we can get it done relatively quickly too. I just thought it was cool. We talked about last week, right? Where we're gonna get into it with our guest here soon, but I was really harping on the idea of renewed hostilities, considering what's happening with the foreign interference, and seeing more being done. And that's all I tweeted out last week. Renewed hostility. I commented on people's tweets. I was tweeting it out. I was reposting tweets. I was doing it all. Just trying to get the point across. Renewed hostilities is key after all this happened. And MP Michael Barrett dropped this, which I thought was interesting. Barrett's bill seeks jail fines for flouting Parliament. Interesting. Mm-hmm. We'll get into it here.
Also, that's an unfortunate picture of that man. That man is a good-looking man, and that is an unfortunate picture. Yeah,
man. The recorder in Times really screwed them.
They did him dirty. He's a good-looking guy, and that is not his best photo.
I'll be honest.
Sorry, Michael. That's not a great one.
That's not flattering on you, dog. But dude, I'll be on record saying you are a beautiful man. So here's the article. It says, lying to Parliament would be punishable by at least 6 months in jail, while contempt of Parliament would result in fines under legislation proposed by local MP Michael Barrett, the Conservative Shadow Minister for Ethics and Accountable Government and MP for Leeds, Grenville, Thousands Islands, and Rideau Lakes. On Friday, introduced Bill C-405, the Parliamentary Accountability for Canadians Act.
They didn't need a new name for that jurisdiction. That's a mouthful.
That's a lot. That was a lot to read, man. That's a lot to read. But the private member's bill calls for a minimum mandatory penalty for 6 months in jail for case of perjury before a House and Parliament. So, is it groundbreaking? Yes, to a degree. I think it's having a bill come forward to really address this issue, I think is really important. Will it go anywhere? We hope it does. My hopes only go so high. Mm-hmm. But I would love to see this energy continued under a conservative government. Like, all right, we want to push this bill. Great. Let's try to make this a reality when you're in power and can actually make it happen. Because I think, this is obviously inspired by what happened with the GC strategies and bringing Christian Firth into the House, and he kind of was really shady about it all. And this, like, if someone tried to do that again, then that person would be thrown in jail. And so the issue, though, is I saw this on Twitter, and everyone jumped into, when MPs lie in question period, we are throwing them in jail. That's not what this is about.
Yeah.
Sorry to break your hearts, y'all. But,
I know.
Yeah.
I saw the same thing too, and I was like, oh. And then I read it further. I was like, no. It's a good start, though. It's a good start, but I do think that $50,000 is way too low. Because what's that?
Considering what things that have happened in terms of how much money gets flown around. Yeah,
exactly. Because I'm thinking we're talking the order of millions of dollars here that they're getting sent from the Canadian taxpayer. Bump that up a bit. At least make it six figures. Come on, inflation has kind of destroyed what 50K does this year. Make it six figures at least.
Yeah,
at least make it $250,000, please. That would be a little bit more of a deterrent. Not by much, but a little more.
Get them thinking.
50,000. That's a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
They're making millions. They'll gladly risk 50,000. But anyway, like I said, it's a good start. Happy to see it. I'm not going to poo-poo a good thing because this is the kind of energy, like you said, that we want to see in government. And I think that it creates a slippery slope in the right way. Much like an ice slide in Quebec City.
Yeah, exactly. And, as I said, we'll get into it more, but we're trending in the right direction with this or at least with the conservative MPs. I just, it's all about holding their feet to the fire, holding them accountable. Like, all right, we saw you brought this up back in 2024. It's now 2026. Are we going to make this a thing now? Mm-hmm. Are we going to bump up that 50K up to $250,000? Like, what are we going to do here? I'd be curious to see and learn more about it. But man, it's been a good time. It's been a wild time.
Before we get into our guest,
yeah,
can we watch that grilling episode of Power and Politics with Vassy and Jagmeet Singh? I threw it in the show notes because it was so good.
Your impression now is that the Prime Minister is essentially okay with a level of foreign interference occurring in this country. That's a pretty serious thing to say. At the same time, you have endorsed his government. You're keeping Mr. Trudeau in power as Prime Minister. Doesn't that make you complicit?
Not at all. And I want to make this point really clear. I'm worried about foreign interference in an election. I don't want to cause an election to address foreign interference. What I want to do is use my power in a minority government to get answers.
Oh.
I can be very clear. When I was critical of Justin Trudeau, I was equally critical of Pierre Poilievre. Oh. I can say with great confidence that neither one, if there was a majority government under Justin Trudeau or a majority government under Pierre Poilievre, neither of them would have allowed for a public inquiry.
I would agree with that.
Both of them have shown behavior where they put the interests of their own party ahead of the country. And there are certain incidents that should absolutely call in anyone who cares about our country to put our country first. And that's why I was very critical of Pierre Poilievre for not even wanting to know what's in there when clearly there's allegations of foreign interference directly related to the Conservative leadership races, touching his party directly, and he doesn't want to know. And that Justin Trudeau did know. And the example I gave was Mr. Dong, which is publicly available, and that's why I can use that example, is that with Mr. Dong, it was clear that he was briefed, given information about foreign interference from intelligence officers and intelligence officials, and accepted a certain level of interference because he didn't say that we're going to remove the candidacy of Mr. Dong. What I want to point out to Canadians as a leader, we vet candidates. If someone has done an egregious tweet or post, they are sometimes vetted out. That means they cannot run.
But this isn't just like a candidate with a bad
foreign
record.
Interference.
This is such a serious allegation. Like, you've spent the past 2 days talking about how seriously you are taking it versus other leaders. But you have to see from the vantage point of Canadians how I get what you're saying. Forcing an election right now, maybe not the best avenue. But your agreement doesn't have to remain as a formality. Just because you break out of that agreement and stop your clear endorsement of the government doesn't mean that you have to cause an election. You can still vote with them on certain matters of confidence. But you appear unwilling to do anything to change that agreement, even when you accuse the Prime Minister, whom you're keeping in power, of being okay with a level of foreign interference in our own country's political system.
Yeah. Renewed hostilities, baby. Yeah, I'm here for that.
I know. And I love how she says, like, you're the reason why this government is getting away with this. And he just stands there blankly for a second, like, think, Jagmeet, think. And he's like, I have forced the government to do things. And also Pierre Poilievre's bad. And did I mention that Pierre Poilievre is bad? And also, you know, it's not good, but I am supporting Canadians. And it's just like that kind of just BS, right?
Yeah.
And the best part of it is she doesn't let it go. She's like, nope, we're right back in there. And something that she says, that she's like, I don't know if forcing an election right now is the best idea. And that took me for a second, because I kind of paused. I was like, why? And I thought about that for a second. I was like, if we don't know who the corrupt individuals in this government are, and then we go to an election, we could potentially just elect those corrupt people right back into power again.
Yeah.
So I kind of agree with that. As much like I wholeheartedly want an election like tomorrow, but at the same time, if we don't have the proper systems in place to make sure that our elections are fair and just and actually represent the will of the people, then we've got a sham election.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, crap. Well, what needs to happen first in order to protect our elections, so that we can then have one?
Yeah.
Because we need one.
First thing first is don't have that bill go through that NDP and Liberal trying to push through with like the change election processes.
Yes.
Don't allow that to go through. Second, release the names. Pretty simple. Let's get it done now, please.
Ta-da.
Boom.
And maybe, you know, adjust Michael Barrett's bill there so that folks can be also charged or thrown in jail if they are lying to the House of Commons.
Please. We want to see all of it. And with that, we're going to transition to our guest. Well, welcome back, y'all. We are excited to have our guest on with us, Logan Stitt. Logan is an impressive individual. He is. We're going to start off with this, and then your mind is just going to be blown. He's a 16-year-old who's running and helping with the Conservative Party here in Canada, and you hear that, be like, wow. Well, we'll see what we get. Well, let me just read you his resume here real quick. All right, it says, a director on the Oakville North Burlington Conservative Board of Directors, contributed to writing policy proposals for the Conservative Party of Canada on a wide range of issues from climate change to immigration. A youth delegate to the 2023 Conservative Convention representing the riding of Oakville North Burlington, I had the opportunity to speak on the convention floor in front of 3,000 people on the subject of Indigenous veteran affairs. And he went on to go work on the nomination campaign for Hanan Rizkallah by helping organize and run successful campaign events with 3 Conservative MPs with a great turnout. And then also now host weekly political spaces on the platform X, we still call it Twitter, but you know, whatever. Where he moderates discussions and debates on the latest what's happening in politics. And this and so much more. Logan, you are an impressive individual. We're super happy to have you. We're going to be talking on the topic of foreign interference today. And even just talking to you before we started recording, you have a lot of knowledge. You know what you're talking about. You know what this is all about. But you are a big party guy. Big fan of, or I wouldn't say fan, but you're a big supporter of the Conservative Party here in Canada. And you're doing your best to help kind of raise awareness and kind of raise the cachet of the party in your riding. And we're excited to have you because there's so much to talk about. We obviously, as you said, the topic, it will be foreign interference, but let's hear more about you. We've read the performances. We read what you do. What got you into politics? You, as I said, you are the ripe age of 16 years old. We are currently in 2024. Are you turning 16 this year, or are you?
No, I'm turning 17 this year.
Turning 17 this year. Okay, so 2020 hit when you were 13.
Yep.
You would have, the last time you would have saw normalcy or a degree of normalcy in our country, you would have been the age of 11 or 12. So lots has happened since in these such formative years for yourself. And now you are in politics. What got you into politics? What made you want to take the step at such a young age?
So I've been interested in politics since around the age of 10. I've been reading books, watching YouTube videos, podcasts like yourselves, and learning about the political world, how it works, what functions and institutions uphold our rule of law and our democracy. And it's just been so fascinating. And then when the 2022 election came around with Doug Ford, Andrea Horwath, and Stephen Del Duca, I thought I would get involved. And I checked out each party's platform. And I said, I'm going to get involved with Doug Ford's team. And I checked out who my local candidate was. got on my biked to Oakville from Burlington to her campaign office, introduced myself to the campaign manager, said I'm here to help. I don't know, this is my first time. I don't know how I can help, but just let me know. And then he offered to pay me. And I said, no, I can't be that committed. I just want to be a volunteer. So I was a volunteer. I ended up canvassing. I would run from door to door. I would go to campaign rallies. And I got to meet Doug Ford once in Hamilton. So it was just all around a great experience. My first campaign, we were successful. And yeah, that's how I got involved.
So what draws you to something like the Conservative Party versus, the Liberals or an NDP party, especially since that's what, the NDP and Liberals are known for, is just, having a lot of young people who support them. What made you want to support the Conservatives?
I do, and I completely agree. I think that a lot of young people are drawn to the Liberal Party, and that's been historically accurate. However, we're seeing a shift now to the Conservatives. But on my part, when I first got interested in politics, I identified as a Liberal, and like yourself. And up until, I would say, 2020 and 2022, I would say I started to shift more towards conservative politics and ideals. In 2021, I was watching the federal election between Aaron O'Toole and Justin Trudeau, and I was an avid supporter of Aaron O'Toole. I really wanted him to become prime minister. However, of course, that did not happen. So that's when I started shifting towards the Conservative Party, because I saw how ineffective Trudeau was in implementing his own policy, not even the one that would benefit Canadians most. So yeah, and then the leadership election came around, and that was around the time of the provincial one. Got a membership card because I wanted to be able to vote, because I realized I'm 14, I can vote. So yeah, and then I decided who I was going to support, and then I voted in August, and here we are with our new leader, Pierre Poilievre, who seems to be a quite effective, communicative leader, and he's going to become the next prime minister.
There you go. And it's funny that you kind of mentioned that. I know that we had just spoken before about that idea of feeling like a Liberal and then seeing what is happening in actuality and going, oh, that ain't me. I'm not really seeing myself in that anymore. And I think that that's kind of the case for a lot of people across the country, honestly, who've just kind of woken up and said, I don't know if I actually really agree with all this anymore. And I think the one thing that you'll find with a lot of Liberal supporters is that if you start to disagree with a few things, you're out, you're gone. So, and that's kind of where I see the Conservatives have really kind of like picked people up and said, you know what, you're allowed to disagree with that. It's okay. And kind of taken away that gaslighting that we're seeing. One of the things that I've also been hearing, and maybe you can kind of speak to this a little bit, is that the next generation here, Gen Z, that's going to be moving into that voting age and moving into actually having more influence into politics, as you've already done, is actually becoming more conservative. Is that something that you're seeing within your age group?
Yes, I am seeing that, but especially among young men. Not so much among young females. They're still towards the Liberal mindset. You see a few stand out and say, of course, I want to get Trudeau out of there. I really like Pierre Poilievre. We got to axe that tax. And but it's particularly among young men, as we see all across the world. And we're seeing that shift because of the housing crisis, because of the cost of living, because of the affordability crisis. People can't afford to live, and young people are worried about owning their own home. So why would they want to vote for the party in charge that's ultimately contributed to most of this?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And to your point about Conservative Party being big tent, I completely agree with that. You see a wide range of MPs, from those on the socially conservative side to those on the socially liberal side. I would say I'm socially liberal. And I would say that offers us a opportunity to allow so many people into the party, to expand our base and allow for a diverse opinion and thought in the party.
So forgive me for a second here. So I'm going to be a bit of a jerk. Just a heads up. All right. So you mentioned a lot there in terms of a lot of young men voting conservative now. What do you think it is that make young men want to vote conservative? You mentioned the housing crisis and this, that, the other. And if I'm being honest, what I'm hearing you say, I've heard a lot from the conservative platform. I'm curious, from your perspective, from your experience, from what you're seeing, why do you think young men are turning conservative versus liberal?
I think that it's their distaste of Trudeau and his attitude to dealing with problems. He doesn't seem like an effective leader, and I think that males like to see an effective leader. And I think that our policy platform really attracts males, and we saw that in his leadership. Pierre Poilievre attracted thousands of people to his rally, females and males of diverse ethnic origin and where they come from across the country. But we did see a large group of men and young men as well. So I think that they're just drawn to Pierre Poilievre and how he deals with the Conservative Party and his leadership style.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's something that resonates with me because you hear Trudeau talk and it's very flowery, it's very nice, it's warm, it's fuzzy, and the problem is like you said, when you have problems like housing and homelessness and high food bank usage, you don't want warm and fuzzy. You want somebody to step in there, take charge, take action, and that's what we're hearing out of Poilievre. We're hearing him come out there and say, no, this is all garbage. You're a fool, you're a wacko, and we're not here for it. And I think, like you said, I think that is a message that resonates with young men in particular. That they're tired of the flowers. They want to see some action.
Yeah, they want to see bold leadership.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll speak personally too. I want to see that more myself. I'm just ready for an adult to enter the room. Is more so speaking personally. That's what I want to see, and I'm sure many others want to see that as well. We've seen a lot of failed policies happen just because it was like, almost coming at it from a child perspective, like this is a great idea, this should work, and it's ruined the country. Good job, congratulations. And so we're waiting for that adult to come in and be like, okay, that's enough. We're going to move on to other things now. And moving on to other things, we've obviously been seeing a lot of this foreign interference come in, and lots of discussion on Parliament Hill about it. And I'll go on the record. Last week's episode, your boy got a little fired up. Just because I really wanted to bring attention to this. Like, I didn't want to treat this as like another, here goes another scandal from this government. It's like, no, this is some serious stuff. We actually got to get down to it. And I wanted to really portray my anger, portray how I was feeling on a very elevated scale to really show this cannot be tolerated in the least bit. And since then, so the key thing I said was, wanting to have a renewed hostility, wanting to see MPs have a renewed hostility towards those in government right now, getting the names on this list of who is working with foreign actors at this point in time. Since that episode aired, we've seen reporters get wild. We'll speak one specifically where we'll play it here.
Democracy is at stake here. So why are you continuing to prop up the government who you say isn't taking democracy seriously? Why do you continue to prop them up?
So the question is, what are we going to do about it?
No, the question is, why do you continue to prop up the government when you say our democracy is at stake and this government is not taking our democracy seriously? Why continue to back them up?
We're not at all doing that. What we're saying is we're going to demand answers. We're going to continue to push for solutions. Because we're in Parliament right now, I was able to read these documents. Because we're in Parliament now, we've been able to push for a letter to have the public inquiry also include the Conservative leadership race in a part of the public inquiry's work. We want to use the tools as parliamentarians, as a parliamentarian myself, to use the tools that I have, to advance democracy. I want to use the tools that I have to get to the bottom of this. The suggestion that an election is a solution to election interference is, I think, a fallacy.
A reporter virtually yelling at Jagmeet Singh after he kind of came out and said, there's some MPs that are involved in this. This isn't good. And this was right after Elizabeth May's like, it's all good. We're fine. Canada's on the right track. And so you had the NDP and you had the Green Party saying two different things, and now adding more confusion, more fire, more frustration into all of it. And then seeing reporters stepping up and doing their job and full on just
hammering them,
giving them the business. And that's what we really love to see. And this is kind of what we're seeing since, House of Commons is getting wild, reporters are getting wild. And what do you think is going to happen from all this? What do you think is going to take to be able to get these names released and be able to put pressure in the right places to make this happen?
I think that just to continue what Pierre Poilievre is doing and putting pressure on the Prime Minister during question period and outside of question period and press conferences and social media posts. However, in the recent days, we've heard the Conservative Party take a step back from foreign interference in talking about different subjects on their social media and in question periods, such as the cost of living crisis, because the Conservatives, the NDP, and the Liberals all voted together to send the foreign interference report from NSICOP to Justice Hogue, who's already dealing with the public inquiry. So this is adding more to her handful of work to do, which is very important. And she's going to come back with a public report on what she has read from the NSICOP report. There were only 2 MPs that voted against that motion, and it was Elizabeth May and her partner in the Green Party, Mike Morris. So very interesting. Her excuse was, I don't want to give any more work to Justice Hogue. She's working too hard. So that was her excuse. So I hope that the names eventually get released. We know Han Dong, I think is that's how you say it, is already named in the report. As we know, he's already been kicked out of the caucus. So, but other than that, we don't know much, and it's just such complete 180 from each side. You know, you hear Elizabeth May, nothing to see here. You hear Jagmeet saying, this is a serious issue. I'm more alarmed about this today than yesterday. And then now it's giving a window for the Liberals to use an excuse and say, there's no validity in this report. Look, we're seeing completely different conclusions from both parties. How can we trust this conclusion if both parties have different viewpoints? So it's giving them an out, essentially.
Yeah, and what I find funny is I think Jennifer L did a really good job on her TikTok where she actually stitched the 2 media press releases together where Jagmeet goes, we have these MPs sitting among us and it's terrible. And then Elizabeth May going, we have no names in here. There's nothing. And then Jagmeet's like, this is serious. We need to be concerned. And Elizabeth May then afterwards going, there's nothing to be worried about here. It was just, the juxtaposition was amazing. It was excellent. But it led me to wonder, though, do you think, this is my conspiracy theory.
Here we go. Bring it.
Do you think that Elizabeth May got a different version of the report? Because I'm wondering, because I don't know if you've seen her a night out where she was speaking to, I think it was like a press dinner that she was at. She got a little too into the sauce and she just started going off. It was a little disgraceful. They had to take her off the stage, you know, with the proverbial big cane, basically. And so I'm wondering, did they leave out a few pages for Miss May so that she wouldn't immediately run to the media and then spill it all because they knew that that's the kind of individual she would be? I don't know, because I think that it's a lot for her to go out there and just blatantly lie like that. I think she actually believes it. And I think the reason why she believes it is because I think they left some pages out for her. I think that it wasn't all redacted.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I don't know. But another point that's been raised by many people within the conservative movement is that she is one of the people named in the report. This is another conspiracy. That she's one of the people named. And the evidence they provide for that, there's a video clip of her at the Consulate General's office in Toronto of Palestine. And she's up at the mic with a Palestine scarf, which is fine. And she's saying, I take my marching orders from the Consular General to the Palestinian Authority. So that's a bit questionable. You know, you're an MP from BC and you're saying you take your orders from a foreign entity and a foreign government? So
Not in your writing?
That's weird.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm not going to name this person.
Good job.
But this individual who was speaking with me was like, I think it's Chryssia Freeland. I was like, why? And they're like, you know, they're finance minister and they have the means and they're in WEF and blah, blah, and all this stuff. And I was like, oh no, we're getting too far down the rabbit hole, I think. But they're like, it's Chryssia. And I was like, I don't think it's Chryssia.
No, I don't think, I don't think she's that stupid, but yeah.
No, I don't either, but
I do think it's someone in cabinet though.
Oh, definitely. It has to be somebody in cabinet because otherwise I feel like if it was just some backbench liberals, they'd be like, yeah, this sucks. We got rid of them. We dealt with it. It's over and done with. Nothing to see here. Move on to the next scandal. But like the fact that it's so big makes me think that there's some people with some big names listed on that list. And it would be hilarious if you were right and Elizabeth May was on that list.
Could you imagine, of all people?
Oh man, she would look terrible for coming out and being like, I'm not concerned.
Yeah.
But who knows?
I do have a question though for you, Logan.
Sure.
So, we sent this, we sent the work to justice right here, right? Do you have any encouragement that we'll really get any information out of this process? Or do you think it will be kind of similar to other reports that have come out in the past? It'll just be redacted to nothing. They'll just release the names that people were expecting, and we'll leave it at that. Do you have hope that there will be integrity in this process?
I have hope, but whether that's actually going to come true are two different discussions. So I have trust in Justice Hogue to do her job with impartiality. However, as we've seen in prior reports, she hasn't given us the whole story. And of course, she's not going to give us the whole story. That's national security. However, I think in this case, she should take a good look at the information and decide what names she can release, because I think the Canadian public deserves to know which MPs are traitorous or treasonous, right? Because if they are included in the report, and it is true, then they are what I just said. So I think that a few of those names need to be released for sure, and especially the cabinet ministers, because they're directing policy in the ministry. So I think that's very important, but we'll have to see what she comes up with. And yeah, it's just, he just tries to downplay it and downplay the report. It's a real shame that Trudeau does that.
Yeah, and I do agree with the idea that these people are still people. They still deserve the innocent till proven guilty.
Yep.
And so, and I understand how if you release the name of an individual who is actually not guilty, maybe a little bit suspect, but not actually guilty, that would destroy their career as a politician. It would ruin them. So I can understand the sensitivity there, but they have named individuals who they said are for sure knowingly aiding foreign entities. And so it's like, well, why don't we start with those folks first? Like, put them through the justice system first. Do it quietly if you have to, but put them through the justice system first. And then once they're found guilty, release it all. As far as the folks that are kind of on the fence, start running them through the courts and the back rooms. And people who are found guilty, release that. People who are found innocent and have been exonerated, let them continue as is. Because I do understand the idea of, if we smear everybody when somebody's innocent, that's not fair either. And that's not the kind of Canada I want to live in. But at the same time, I also don't want to live in a Canada where we are voting for people who are actively working against us and in service of foreign entities. So it's it's not a great situation for sure.
No. But yeah. So sorry, to your point about cabinet ministers, the cabinet is made up of 39 people. So there's a big chance that one of those are named in the report.
So I'll have a question for you. Now, this is going to be, depending on your perspective, might be a little tough to swallow. Do you think there's a possibility that there are any names in the Conservative Party?
Yes, for sure. There are definitely the possibility. And if there are those who are named who are in the Conservative Party, I think they need to be kicked out immediately. They need to be punished by the Conservative Party and completely ousted, no matter what. We need to make sure this is valid and that, innocent until proven guilty, of course. But if they are proven guilty, I think they need to be kicked out immediately and, stripped of their nomination capabilities so they cannot run again because they were traitorous. So I think that there's more likelihood that there are more in other parties, especially the Liberals. However, there is, of course, the possibility that there are those in the Conservative Party.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it kind of goes to the fact that everybody is guilty right now until we know who is actually innocent and who's guilty. And that's the hard part, right? Is that nobody's safe here until we find out who was on that list. But thinking about the Conservatives themselves and looking at recent polling numbers, what are your thoughts right now looking at the massive lead that we're seeing? And do you think that this foreign interference news is really playing into that?
I think it is, but there's been a trend since last August where the Conservatives are up 10 to 15 and now we're up 20%. So I think this is helping our surge, but of course, there's other factors that are leading that. I don't think that on top of Canadians' mind is foreign interference. However, it should be, but it's not. The cost of living is what's on the top of their mind. And the new polls we heard that came out of Abacus and Nanos last week were huge news. Abacus gave us 41-22 for the Conservatives, leading 20 points ahead, and the Liberals at an all-time low since 2020. So it was a damning poll with 1,500 people surveyed. So I think it's quite reputable.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's like, I remember when I saw that number, I was like, the lowest since 2020. That's saying something. And the fact that we're now seeing, projections of the Conservatives just winning a majority that no one has ever seen before is like, that just kind of shows you an idea of how bad things have gotten. And people are, I was seeing some stats saying that the Conservatives will win a majority. Like, they have them at a 99% chance of winning a majority.
Yeah.
That's bonkers.
They do, yeah.
Well, they're talking supermajority, right?
Yeah.
So, and then it's funny because when you hear the Liberal talking points around this, they're like, the world has gone far right. And you're like, has it? Or have you just gotten, like we spoke before, gotten so absurdly left that you've left all of your supporters in the dust? Because that's what it seems to be. And then the other part of it too is this, like, a lot of these countries that are also, we're seeing, like, more right-wing politicians being elected. What is the big issues? It's, like you said, it's cost of living, it's overtaxation, it's out of control immigration. And that's something we're seeing in Canada, where we just are just letting everybody in. We're talking about giving people who are undocumented all status now. Like, it's absolutely absurd. And it's absurd for the reason of trying to hide the deficiencies in our economy, by trying to hide what GDP actually is, so that they don't look like they're the government running a recession, and so that they can try and win more votes from new Canadians. Absolutely. And so, of course, people are going to completely reject that. And we're seeing that happen everywhere where you're seeing out of control immigration. But yeah, it's funny though, because it's showing up in these polls, and we're seeing a lot of people in the Liberal side, in the Liberal camp, actually rejecting the polls. Mm-hmm. So being like, these are fake news.
And guess what? If the polls were in their favor, they'd be saying, "Oh my gosh, look at these polls!" But because they're not in their favor, they're saying fake news.
Of course,
they're almost sounding like the 2016 Donald Trump. So it's kind of funny that way. But I'll ask you, Logan, someone who's ran campaigns, like, how do polls affect your job? Like, how do polls affect how you kind of go about business at this point? Do you kind of pay attention to them and be like, in really kind of, maybe you incidentally kind of pull the foot off the gas a little bit, and you kind of figure out different things? Or are you kind of like, like, the polls are good just to see where data's trending, but like, screw the polls, move on, we keep going and put it down their throat until we win?
Yeah, I've helped many nomination campaigns, and with the Conservative surge, I check the 338 numbers in many polls every week, but they continually show that the riding I'm in of Oakville West and Burlington North, Milton West, the two ridings I'm helping out with, that we should have no worry about winning, right? That doesn't mean we should give up. We should continue hitting the ground running. But the main concern is over the nominations and the nomination process, and ensuring that Conservatives get the right candidates. That's why I'm helping out certain candidates that I think are the best to face off against the Liberals and be effective MPs. So that's my main concern right now, the nomination process. It's getting the Conservatives memberships, making sure they're up to date, and then getting them out to vote. That's the most important part right now.
It's interesting that you mentioned the nomination process, because we've heard a lot about that. What are your thoughts on this, being somebody who has been involved in the nomination process? Do you think that there's any validity to this?
To the accusations of corruption you're suggesting?
Exactly.
Putting me in a difficult position here, guys, but I will answer your question. I think that these accusations should be dealt with. They should be investigated and ensured that there's no difficulties in the nomination process whatsoever. I can't speak to that right now on how quote-unquote corrupt they are right now, because there's been no investigation, but I think we need to have that internally within the Conservative Party, because we need to ensure that we are a democratic party and that we elect our candidates democratically and not by appointment, because I think that that's how our nomination system was put up for the conservative grassroots to decide who our candidates are. So I think that should be placed on the utmost importance, because we can't claim to care about democracy if there's no democracy within our own party.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's funny because I'm now a card-carrying conservative, apparently. I paid my $10 and I joined. And it was actually for that reason, to understand the nomination process, especially because in my area is currently a Liberal candidate right now. The MLA for the area is a Liberal candidate, and the MP for the area is a Conservative candidate. So I kind of signed up because I'd like to see exactly how they pick the candidate for both of the provincial and the federal running. Because after hearing about the corruption, I'm kind of like, maybe I want to be a little more involved, and maybe I want to have a little more say in this. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's an interesting process, and I think especially if you're a Conservative member, you should really get to know it, because it's a very important process, and to understand it, because this is how our candidates get elected, or they should get elected that way.
And that's actually something that Jennifer L. brought up on one of our episodes, but she was saying, like, the nomination process is one of the most important parts of the process. So a lot of people don't pay attention to, because this is how we decide who actually gets their name on the ballot. And then the rest of it is all marketing and trying to get the person to win, right?
Yeah.
So it's that initial step that is actually so important. So if you are a person who identifies with the Liberal Party, with the NDP Party, with the Conservative Party, whatever party it is, go get your name on the nomination, or sorry, not the nomination. Yeah, go run. Yeah. Go get yourself out there and become a card-carrying member, so that you can actually get involved in the nomination race, because it is so important. I think it is probably one of the most important pieces of it.
Absolutely. Totally. And we got into some pretty hairy waters there, Logan. We think you did a good job answering them. We really appreciate it. But before we conclude here, what are some things that are top of mind for you that you want to kind of get out there and have discussion on?
Well, just to ensure that everyone is understanding the political parties and ensuring that they can place themselves in a certain camp and get ready to vote in the next election, because we know it's coming soon, whether that be next spring, whether that be in the scheduled fall. You should get ready to vote and make sure you're decided. And also, if you are a card-carrying Conservative or not, make sure your membership is up to date. And as I said, get involved in your association, get involved in the nomination process. And in regards to what you said about the candidates and running in nominations, because there's such a blue wave coming, we have so many candidates jumping into the nomination, which is great for democracy, and so many people who want to become candidates to represent the Conservatives federally.
Totally.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely. Well, Logan, thank you so much for coming on. It really means the world, and we'll be keeping a close eye on you as we go through, as we kind of things start getting a little hotter as we get closer to an election, and we wish you luck as you kind of help out the campaigns moving on here.
Yeah, I hope I can come back.
Absolutely,
yeah,
dude.
definitely.
We want to get it. We want updates, sir. We want updates, and we're looking forward to them.
Okay, great. Great.
Awesome. Have a good one, dude.
You too.
16 years old. Logan Stitt, man. Unreal. Very well spoken. Knows what he's about. Knows what he wants to do. And we're here for it. We wish there were more 16-year-olds that were that mature. Yeah,
I know what we were just saying amongst ourselves. I said, I wish that I was that focused at 16. I was like, I'm embarrassed of 16-year-old Reg compared to Logan. Man, like, adding so much value to the conversation really has done the work and has gotten so much experience at such a young age, which is honestly impressive. Definitely a guy to watch, definitely a guy to see into the future, because I think that he's going to do some good things, and I'm glad that we got the chance to talk to him.
Absolutely. I'm glad he took the time out and shed some light on some things that I didn't even realize, which was exciting, and super happy, and curious to see what he does in an election and how he helps out his campaigns. But moving on here, though, the carbon tax report finally came out. We talked about last week of it being hidden. Again, the theme of tonight, there's a lot of, you can't see me on the carbon tax report. And then it finally came out, and it looked rough. It wasn't good. It was tough for you boys. But you know what Reg did? Reg does what he does best. He gets into the nitty gritty, looks at what happened, and realizes, yeah, this is bad. And he hits us with the numbers. Hit us, Reg.
Okay. So basically what we're talking about is we're talking about 30 billion by 2030.
Woo!
That's how much it's going to hit the economy. So sounds like a lot, but what I have to kind of, this is where I kind of got a little bit mad at myself and a little bit mad about this report, is that all these numbers are projected. They're estimates. They're things that may or may not happen depending on the turn of government or the change in whatever technology comes out there. And so this is why I kind of get a little bit frustrated with these reports, especially when you hear like them blab on about the 8 and 10 families over and over and over again. That's an estimated figure. That's not actual numbers. They did not go back to last year and look at the amounts that people got and said, oh, this is exactly what people were given. This is how much we collected. Because if they did that, they would know how much carbon tax they collected. But what is significant about this report is just, even though it is a projected number, it's still such a hit to the economy.
Yeah.
And I think that even at 30 billion, which was, 10 billion more, or sorry, was it 35 billion? Yeah, 35 billion. That it's not going to capture everything, because we have to look at the fact that there's so many businesses going under that can't actually survive this carbon tax and what it's doing to the trucking industry, what it's doing to the price of food. It's gutting the Canadian economy. I think that is actually a low figure. I think that it was not estimated to what is actually going to happen. And I think that's the biggest letdown of all these numbers, honestly.
That's tough, man. Like, I think you bring up a good point. There's a lot of scare tactics with this one. And I think it's important to really, we got enough issues to deal with right now. We have enough that's going on in our country. Let's, do our best to take a step back and look at the reality of what's happening. And yeah, when we're treating projections as if they're hard facts, that's tough. Like, we can't be doing that. And we'll see what happens here. The fact that they're estimating 30 billion to the economy,
35 billion apparently.
It would cost the taxpayer 35 billion if we didn't put a carbon tax in, is what I'm understanding of that.
I thought it was that it's going to be a hit of 35 billion to the economy because of the carbon tax policy.
I thought it was 30 billion. It was going to be a hit to the economy by the carbon tax itself, but they're saying that because it's going to they projected that it's going to cost the country 35 billion in extreme weather events and damages and stuff.
Those numbers are too close together.
And you're too tired for this. But that's what I'm understanding from the report.
You know what, though? Okay, let's go back to that. Let's say 35 billion in adverse weather effects. How the F are they calculating that? Like, let's be real. They can't even get the weather right for next week. They told me it was going to rain all last week. It was nothing but sun. Give me a freaking break. They're going to tell me that it's going to cost them 35 billion in adverse weather effects. Also, newsflash, we produce 1.6% of the greenhouse gases going into the atmosphere. India 2 months ago burnt the largest landfill on the face of the planet and put how many hydrocarbons in the atmosphere? Meanwhile, China is still sending methane out there, which is 80 times more dense and more harmful to the earth than than CO2 alone. So what the hell? We're just making people poor for no reason. It's absolutely absurd. And then what I thought was most interesting was because I was like, well, how much is actually, being affected right now? Like, how much is that 1.6 in comparison to other countries? And so I started digging up some trends. And I was actually looking at the fact that when you go from the year 2000 to now, we've actually gone down consistently. Then it went down really far during the pandemic because everybody was locked inside, so nobody went anywhere. Flights were all canceled. So obviously, we're actually turning back up again after the carbon tax. So if we were already on a downward trajectory for our carbon emissions, what the hell is the point of this carbon tax? We were already heading that way anyway. The US, same with them. They were also trending down. You know who wasn't? India and China. Do you know why? Because they're burning coal like it's going out of style because they can't meet their energy needs. And I've said this last week and I'll say that freaking again. How are we going to meet their energy needs? Maybe with natural gas that we supply them. Win-win. Like, if you actually care about the environment, you would take away the problem. The problem is those countries' use of energy. It's not our use of energy, because we were already trending downwards. This is just pain for no reason. It's a complete scapegoat to collect money. And the fact that they're not telling us how much they've actually collected and how much that they have there, and they're just waving that stupid 8 and 10 and the rebate and blah, 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 and everything's so great. The fact that they won't actually give us the number of money that they're collecting makes me think that they're using it for other things. Because obviously they're like, it's neutral. It's revenue neutral. I don't buy that for a minute. We've seen how much this government lies to us. What are they doing with the rest of the money? That's my question. Going back to Pierre Poilievre, where's the funds? Because honestly, that's the question. Because at 1.6% of the emissions into this planet's atmosphere, this is a team sport, people. Even if we eliminate all of our 1.6, they're still going to get hotter. Why? Because not everybody else is playing the same game that we're playing by these rules. If everywhere else had the same kind of carbon tax and the same kind of system set up, then maybe it would be a different story, but they're not. So we're just creating hardship for our own people for no reason, because we are not the cause of climate change, and people are going to be very upset by that, but it's the truth. At 1.6%, we are a drop in this ocean of carbon emissions. So I'm sick of it.
Wow, you just had your viral moment this week, huh? Yeah, no, I think, but you bring up a lot of great points, and there's a reason. This is why I thought it was interesting. Question period today, this was brought up, and people were bringing up. They brought up this report. This is all BS. We're taxing our economy by $30 billion in GDP, and we don't know if we're actually seeing results from it. And that was kind of the talk in question period. And then Stephen Guo gets up there and says, we're just trying to protect people from hurricanes. We're trying to protect them from big weather events. We're trying to protect them from forest fires. Like these words came out of this man's mouth. And I was like, holy smokes. This guy really is a communist. He thinks he's God. Oh, he's jumping.
It's like, you want to protect people? Provide better insurance for people, because you know what? When those floods happened, if water came from the ocean, their insurance policies were nullified.
Ooh.
The insurance companies wouldn't cover the damages from ocean. I had friends who actually worked in the insurance industry who were just like talking to people on the phone being like, so the water came from the rain, right? And then you had these poor souls, God love them, that were just like, oh no, it came right from the waves. And they're like, oh no, you can't say that. As soon as you say that, now I can't help you out. And so they were trying to coach people over the phone through these policy discussions to try and like give them something. So if Guibo wants to help people, maybe change some of these insurance agencies' laws around what is actually allowed to be claimed. Because if we know that there's going to be more hurricanes and more flooding and more adverse weather effects, then Canadians need to be insured properly. Maybe start retasking the military to be trained to deal with natural disasters, so that when we have a massive forest fire, we can call in the military to come deal with it in an effective manner. I don't know, maybe things like that. And then you could actually upgrade the Air Force to have proper aircraft that would also serve the needs of evacuating people from areas like the Northwest Territories when they were having fire kind of consume everything around them and they couldn't escape. I don't know. Those are solutions to help Canadians, because you can't control the weather, and certainly not at 1.6% of emissions. That is the number that just burns me. So they can take every carbon tax report they want. They can just gussy it up however they want to put the lipstick on that pig, because it does not matter. And that's the part that annoys me.
I love this for you, Reg. I love the swap of roles tonight. I'm here for it. But you're not wrong, and we're here for it. So, yeah, that's that. Is there anything else you want to go off on before we conclude that segment?
No, it's painful to me, because I think that there really are really, really good things that we can do for the climate. And when I say for the climate, I mean the environment. We don't want to create situations like in Nova Scotia, we have a pulp and paper mill that basically completely poisoned a lake beside one of the native reserves here. They gave people cancer, they ruined lives, they ruined land, they ruined the environment. That's not what we're looking for. We're not saying open season on Canadian environment, but at the same time, we're also saying there are imperfect steps that we can take, like maybe building windmills in a place where it might not be absolutely 100% perfect, but no place is. Or looking at the fact that we have some of the largest natural oil or natural gas reserves on the planet. Maybe we should start using clean natural gas. And then what happens when we get rid of the natural gas? We transition to clean hydrogen. Like, you know what I mean? There's steps that we can be taking, because nobody's going to want to turn off the lights and say, no, I don't need my power today. Nobody's going to turn off their computer, turn off their phone. We're still going to use the energy. So it has to come from somewhere. So why not do it in a way that's cleaner and greener? And I am totally in support of that. Things like creating efficiencies in people's homes by allowing them to, put insulation in or use heat pumps where it's effective. Trying to get Alberta to use heat pumps is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. They dropped to like minus 44 in the wintertime. Like, these things aren't going to work. So it's about being contextually appropriate and using systems and solutions that make sense for the communities that we're in. And then using dirty systems where we have to, because it makes sense, because we can't completely destroy our economy in service of some unknown objective that we're not even measuring. And that is what is horrific to me, because the thing that we can measure is the impact it's having on people's lives. And the thing that I see working in healthcare is the amount of drug use, the amount of suicides, the amount of stress-related injuries, deaths, illnesses that have gone up, because you see that completely correlated to changes in our economy. And people who are struggling out there because of the policies and the absolutely ridiculous, asinine way that they have branded this all as saving the world, it just makes me cringe. And I just look at this and I go, this is unfair. And then anybody who says, hey, I'm hurting right now, and they're like, well, you don't care about the planet. It's like, no, we need to stop doing that. That's inappropriate, it's unkind, and it's unfair. And like I said, even if we wiped out all of our carbon emissions tomorrow, good job for us. The planet's still going to warm.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't do anything to make things better, but I'm saying start creating solutions that we look at this, like I said, as a team sport, where we're actually going, hey, China, I see that you're burning a lot of coal and you're releasing a lot of methane, and you've been consistently releasing more methane into the atmosphere year over year over year since 2000. Maybe we can help you out with that, and we can make ourselves a little coin in the process.
Yeah,
it's a win-win in that scenario.
Totally.
So why not?
I think now is a good time to recognize the fact that Donald Trump wants to increase tariffs and remove income tax.
You know what? I think that needs to be a gradual process. I don't think you could do it tomorrow.
No.
I would think that would throw everything into absolute chaos. I think you'd just see things just like spin wildly out of control. But I think that's something that you could say, like, in the next 10 years, year over year, income tax is going to go down by this much and tariffs are going to go up by this much, until you completely eliminate one over the other. Because I've been having this conversation now for weeks, that if the carbon tax is considered a tool to demotivate people from burning carbon, then the income tax is a demotivating tool for people to create income. So yeah, why not get rid of it if you can?
Yeah.
And if they have shown that they can do it by creating tariffs, and you know what, the other thing too is, it's a little bit smarter than people think, because it would actually encourage local business.
Yep.
It would encourage local manufacturing. It'd create a self-sustaining economy so that you're not as reliant on other economies.
Yep.
And so it really would be an America First policy. Mm-hmm. I think that the speed at which it was implemented would be key.
Yeah.
I think that you would have to do it over time, so that people would have time to react. People would have time to build businesses. People would have time to farm. People would have time to actually create the economy that you'd be destroying effectively.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with all that, and that's why I agree with that policy. But wild card time, dude. This is definitely probably going to be one of the edgier ones we've ever done on the show. Just a heads up.
Okay.
And I want a live reaction from you. And I'm going to set it up a bit. So this is a clip from the Your Mom's House podcast. and they've been reacting to TikTok videos that have an absorbent amount of comments on them.
I love those channels.
That's why I wanted to have your reaction to this. I want a live reaction to this, okay?
Because like I forget, I think it's like most disturbing comments is one of the channels that I follow.
Of course.
So bad,
dude.
I'm like, how do people come up with this? It's so good. It's so bad. It's good.
So bad. Yeah. So heads up for anyone listening. If you have young kids around or people with sensitive ears, just, end the show now. Here we go.
More videos that elicit a lot of comments.
Do you know what's in your almond milk? This brand has canola oil, natural flavors, and is fortified with synthetic vitamins. Instead, try malt. It has 3 ingredients. It's just almonds, water, and sea salt.
Oh, I bet people love her.
Well,
nothing but positivity.
Goblin head, big word. I came to the comment section to see if everyone agreed, and the only comments I see is everyone bashing this young man. Oh, boy. I know someone who would like that, who would hit that. Oh, okay.
85,000 likes for that.
85,000.
Oh, come on, you guys.
What ethnicity are you? I'd like to call you a slur.
Oh,
by Mr. N-word.
Mr. N-word, yeah.
That's really cool.
Next video, try opening them with your chin. Jesus Christ. She escaped the Salem witch trials to tell us about almond milk. That's dedication. Man.
Jeez.
Stop worrying about what's in the almond milk. Start worrying about if your mom and dad were brother and sister. That's fucking... It's cool.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, so that's Goblin Head. There's Baby Head and Goblin Head.
Oh my God. That is... that poor woman. Like, all I can think is like, she cannot like read those. Like,
no. People are ruthless on the internet, man.
Absolutely ruthless.
Like our comment section can be bad. I feel like, and I'm okay with our comment section because, like, we bring it on ourselves. We're talking about, topics that are a little spicy. We expect people are going to feel passionate about it. People like this are just living their lives and just trying to help with people's health regimens, and they are subjected to comments like these. It's terrible.
I know, because I was like, I was bought in. I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of gross that the almond milk has a whole bunch of canola oil in it. And she's like, this one has this great. And I'm like, oh, that's great. That's good. And then those comments, oh my God. That comment, what ethnicity are you? I'd like to call you a slur. Okay, people can't hear this. Just us dying for 20 minutes.
Oh, that's good stuff, man. Yeah. God. Where did they come up with these stuff, man? Oh, you jumping. Yeah, so I thought we'd end off with that one just because that.
I have tears in my eyes, and you do too. Okay.
We are both tired.
Yep.
Absolutely, man. Awesome. Well, that was a dang good show.
Yep. Thanks for sticking with us around.
Seriously.
Around that one. My God.
Absolutely. So whatever it is you're doing, whether you be hanging out with your friends,
reading some disturbing comments,
or trying to change the world while watching Question Period. I don't know. Whatever it is you're doing, wherever you are, we love you. We're out. Peace. Shout out getting rid of income taxes.